Three African nations just did the impossible. For decades, Western powers have told us African nations can't manage their own money. They need our expertise, they need our systems. Today, that narrative has collapsed. While the world was distracted with conflicts and other things around the world, Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, the Sahel Alliance, just created a new central bank and an investment fund. Something that ECOWAS has struggled to create for the last 30 years and haven't succeeded. Have you ever wondered why a continent with $45 trillion worth of natural resources has a poverty rate of 40%? Ever ask yourself why foreign corporations get rich off African gold while Africans themselves remain poor? The answer has always been about one thing: who controls the money? And for the first time in modern history, that control is shifting. This isn't just any African political story. This is an economic earthquake that could permanently alter the global financial landscape. And it is happening right now, whether the world pays attention or not. CNN won't show you this, but international development workers report that farmers across Mali grow enough food to feed hundreds of people, but yet they can't pay school fees for their children. Sounds mysterious, right? Now, so why is it so? It is so because the economic system wasn't designed for ordinary Africans to succeed. In this video, I'm going to decode all these things and show you exactly why and how it is happening. And the good news is Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are about to change all this altogether. It's a game changer. According to a recent World Bank report, small-scale farmers in the Sahel region pay interest rates up to 45% on agricultural loans, rates that would be illegal in most Western countries. Meanwhile, the prices of their crops are determined in trading rooms in London and Chicago, not based on their actual production costs. And the currency in their pockets, the value is controlled by the French treasury, the same country that colonized their grandparents. Imagine a system where loans come from a bank that understands local farming conditions. Imagine investment decisions about Mali's infrastructure made by people who actually use that infrastructure. This is a very big game changer. I want to say something. At first, we had the World Bank, the IMF. Those are the big banks in the world. When you want to borrow money, you go to them, right? But Africans have been crying all over the years that they have been unfairly treated, and most often these banks have taken their resources, and I'm going to tell you how. And because of the ill practices of these banks, that's why the BRIC is making a new development bank. Now, Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali are making something similar but at a smaller scale, but has a lot of meaning. Now, let me explain something to you. Do you know that the interest rate that African countries borrow money from the World Bank is sometimes 10 times higher than the interest rate that a Western country borrow? Do you know that? Have you ever wondered why the system is made like that? I want to explain something to you so that you should understand how the world functions, and all these things are verified. You can check it online. The interest rates that African countries take loans from the World Bank is far more higher than the interest rate that Western countries take from the same bank. Let me tell you why it's like that. When you go, let's say you're an African country, when you go to the World Bank to borrow money, they tell you what they want you to do with that money. For example, if your aim was to, let me say, you want to create industries, because you know Africa needs industries, Africa needs manufacturing, because we import more than 70% of what we consume. That is a fact, verifiable fact. So it makes sense for us to buy machinery. So when this country, let's say country A, African country A, goes to borrow money from the World Bank, before giving you that money, they'll tell you that these are our conditions. We want the collateral, 1. 2, we have people that can do this work so that you should be able to pay this money. We don't want a situation where you will not be able to pay this money. I'm talking about this. I'm saying this now because we have seen this in our country. We have seen this in Cameroon. For decades, it has happened for a very long time. They say they are going to give you experts. They're going to give you a company that's going to do this work for you so that you generate that money. The company is going to come. I don't want to call the name of the company. There are several of them. I don't want to call any of the names. The company is going to come, and it's going to come with the nationals of that country. Let's say it was France. They come with French people to do that job. The French people come. They themselves, they do the job. Sometimes they give it to the Chinese. They take the contract, then they give to the Chinese. At the end of the day, that money that was borrowed to you, it goes back to France, and part of it goes to China. You are left with a road that can't produce that $20 billion that was initially borrowed to you. That road cannot produce that money. Meaning that you are not going to finish paying that money by the end of 5 years. And when you don't finish paying that money at the end of 5 years, what happens? That mineral deposit that you promised as a guarantee means you have sold it. That's how minerals are sold cheap in Africa. At the end of the day, not only have you sent back that money that was given to you to their country, one, you didn't employ enough people in their own country. Two, third, you have lost minerals. Fourth, just papers were sent to you. Just papers, because sometimes when they borrow that money, $20 billion, that is paper. That is paper that was printed, right? That is paper. Meanwhile, you are giving value, minerals that were formed over billions of years in your soil. That is what they are trying to fight. And that is why the BRICS Development Bank came in the first place. The BRICS Development Bank came to dismantle that unfair system. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, they occupy massive territory in the heart of West Africa. If they were a single country, they would be the 7th largest country in the world, bigger than India and the whole of West Europe combined. And they are not exactly poor. Gold, uranium, cotton, lithium, just the materials running your smartphone and powering green energy. But here is the crazy part. For decades, these same resources we're talking about have made many people rich, except for people who live there. Does that sound like economic independence to you? Now, fast forward to 2022 and 2023, where 3 of these nations were undergoing military transition of power. The West and ECOWAS, they responded with sanctions, essentially saying, stand in line or starve. But something unexpected happened. Instead of buckling under pressure, these 3 nations looked at each other and said to themselves, what if we don't need their system anyway? Last month, while TikTok was arguing about some celebrity drama, the finance ministers of the Sahel states met to create not just a talking shop, but actual financial institutions with real power. A stabilization fund to protect against economic shocks, an investment bank to fund development projects, and the foundation of a complete monetary union. But wait, didn't the ECOWAS promise the exact same thing with the eco currency? In 2009, ECOWAS made a promise that they were going to launch a common currency by 2015. When 2015 came, it was postponed to another new date, that was 2020. In 2020, ECO launch was postponed to 2027. Meanwhile, the Sahel states just did it. No fanfare, no 30-year committee meetings, just action. Wow. And if that is not to shake things up, breaking news just came in that Togo is about to join the Sahel states. This changes everything. It changes everything we know about West Africa. This is a geopolitical earthquake. Think about this. Togo has been a staunch ally to Western countries for decades. It hosts a major US development hub. It's been one of the ECOWAS most consistent members. And now they are joining the Sahel bloc. Why does this matter? Now this matters because Togo brings something that the Sahel states desperately needs: ocean access. Don't get me wrong. Any other country can give ocean access, though no country has explicitly said they are going to offer ocean access freely for the Sahel states. Now let me say something. Imagine you find yourself in a room, and in that room there are about 10 people inside that room. That room is locked. You have to go out of that room. Everybody in that room except you has a key. The problem is, among the people in that room, only one key is the best key that can just open that door without any effort. The rest of the keys can open the door, but you might take an hour or two before you open that door. That's the same thing that is happening. Togo is having the best port in West Africa. It is the deepest port in West Africa that can handle the largest ships that you can imagine, and even those that have not yet created in the world. Togo. So the person with the perfect key inside that locked room walks up to you with the best key and hands that key to you. This is more than the Sahel states could ever ask for. I don't think they were expecting that Togo would do that, because Togo is, first of all, a very strong attaché to ECOWAS. It's a very strong ally to the West. So this is something very great. It is, as I said it, breaking news. So until now, the Sahel states were landlocked. They depended on other coastal countries for their imports and exports. With Togo as a partner, their shipping access is guaranteed. For Togo, this is equally transformative. They gain access to Mali's gold, Niger's uranium, and Burkina Faso's agricultural output. More importantly, they are positioned to become the gateway for 80 million person market. Now imagine the port fees, the custom revenue, the logistics industries that will develop around this relationship. Togo could transform from a tiny coastal nation into a major regional trade hub, the Singapore of Western Africa. But there is a hidden lesson here that most analysts are missing entirely. What African leaders have been whispering for years. ECOWAS and other organizations similar to it represent Western interests in Africa rather than Africa's interest. Now, the speed with which ECOWAS and the EU threatened to sanction the Sahel states shows that they are not really putting African development or unity at the forefront. They are concerned much about control. Think about this. If an organization truly represents your interests, would it sanction you for seeking better economic opportunities? Of course not. You would expect it to adapt to serve you better. So the real story isn't about economics or banking. It's about Africans saying, we will chart our own course based on our own interests, not yours. Now let's talk about what makes the Sahel banking system so revolutionary. The central bank we're talking about is not just any ordinary bank. It's a complete reimagination of how African finances can work. According to leaked documents from recent ministerial meetings, the Sahel banking system will be structured around three core principles. First, resource-backed currency. Unlike the CFA franc that's pegged to the euro, the new AES currency will be partially backed by gold reserves from Mali and Burkina Faso. This gives it intrinsic value independent of Western currencies. The second core principle, self-directed investments. The AES Investment Bank won't be making loans based on IMF conditions or World Bank priorities. Instead, it will focus on regional infrastructure, agriculture, and manufacturing that only serves local needs. And third, this is the game changer. The AES nations will conduct trade within themselves with their local currency, not dollars, not euros, not francs CFA. Their own local currency, and this is going to reduce their vulnerability to currency manipulations and sanctions. With Togo joining in, this only builds in more credibility. But here's what has Western bankers truly afraid. This system is completely replicable. If it works for the Sahel, what's stopping other regions from doing the same? Imagine an East African Monetary Union or a Southern African Economic Bloc, all operating on similar principles. We could be witnessing the first domino in the complete transformation of African finance. And the implications for global power dynamics are enormous. But of course, not everyone is thrilled about these developments. Have you noticed major Western medias have not reported about this? No, even as we speak. I was saying this while I was still filming this video. Have finished filming the video by now, and you might be watching by now. And even at this time that you are watching, major Western channels have not yet made videos on this. Now ask yourself, if 3 European nations created a central bank, would it make headlines? You know the answer, right? That's it. Behind closed doors, however, there is panic. I mean actual, genuine panic. If alternative African banking models succeed and spread to other resource-rich regions, it could fundamentally alter global commodity markets within a decade. The direct translation of this is that Western countries could lose privileged access to natural resources that they have taken for granted for centuries. No wonder they are not broadcasting this on CNN. Beyond economics and geopolitics, there is a deeper meaning to what is unfolding here. Pay attention. Throughout history, real change has never come from working with systems that were designed to limit your potential. Real change comes from creating new systems. The American revolutionaries didn't petition the British Crown for better representation. They created their own government. Gandhi didn't try to reform the British colonial system. He worked to dismantle it entirely. So these Sahel nations, now including Togo, are now showing the world that dignity can never be given. It cannot be granted. It can only be claimed. How often have we all played by rules created by others for their benefits? The most powerful lesson from the Sahel story is this: sometimes creating your own table is better than begging for a seat at someone else's. And here is what makes this particularly powerful. The Sahel nations aren't just talking about change. They are building it brick by brick, institution after institution. There is something universally inspiring about people standing up and saying, we will determine our own future. So what will happen next? I have 3 predictions. The first prediction is that expect heavy resistance. The powers that have been benefiting from the current system won't give up without a fight. So you would likely see bad media coverage, heavy economic pressure, and attempts to isolate these countries. But here's where it gets interesting. If the Sahel nations can weather the initial storm, we could see something remarkable. Other African nations would be very much willing to join. Imagine if Guinea, with its massive bauxite reserves, decided to align with the Sahel states. Or if other gold-producing nations like Ghana saw the benefits and joined in. We could potentially witness the beginning of a genuine economic revolution in Africa. One that finally translates resource wealth into development and prosperity. Throughout history, independence has never been given. It has always been taken. What Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and now Togo are attempting is not just about economics or banking. It's about rewriting a story that began with colonization and continued through decades of economic exploitation. Will they succeed? The odds are steep. Powerful interests are aligned against them. But for the first time in generations, they are fighting on the economic battlefield that actually matters. And regardless of the outcome, they have already accomplished something ECOWAS and the African Union have only talked about. They have taken concrete steps towards true economic sovereignty. The lesson for all of us, African or not, is profound. Systems don't change themselves. People change systems. And sometimes creating new systems is the only way forward. Today, in the heart of the Sahel, we are witnessing not just the birth of a banking system, but the rebirth of an idea that a people united by common purpose can shape their own destiny. And that's something worth paying attention to. So what do you think? Could the Sahel Alliance model, now strengthened by Togo's strategic port, transform Africa's economic future? Would you support your country joining a similar initiative? Let me know down in the comments below. If this analysis opens your eyes to something new, hit the like button and join our Strategic Lens community for more unfiltered African geopolitics analysis. Until next time, keep your lens focused on what truly matters.